Hello, everyone, and welcome to Inside Sales Enablement Season 3, Enablement History. And today we have one of the OGs that was there from the beginning, Jen Marie Jacober, or Bacon, as you may know. We'll
Yes,
have to
yes.
unpack that, right?
Yeah,
She
absolutely.
she not only was there from the beginning of the Sales Enablement Society, she continues to be a consultant in transformation as we head into this new AI age, which is perfect because season 4, spoiler alert, is going to be about the future. So, who better
Woo!
than to have a person who has a foot in each than Jen Marie? Jen, can you share a
Wonderful.
little bit about yourself as a human being? Not necessarily the enablement part. We'll get to that in a minute.
Okay, well, as a human being, yeah, that I don't know why I feel a little stumped now. I'm like, whoa, a human being. What does that even mean?
I only play one on TV.
Yeah, I think I'm one every day. No one's told me otherwise so
Yeah.
far. It's
Yeah,
feeling
yeah.
really good. Yeah, no, I'm a human being. I got two kids, a husband. I live in kind of in the country these days. I have to commute to the city to get my city experiences. So yeah, that's me, human being. I love to walk, go hiking, all
That's
those things.
awesome. Awesome. So what about enablement? Where did you first hear the words sales enablement, even though it's revenue enablement these days? And
Oh yeah.
how did you
Well,
stumble into the society?
Well, ironically, I stumbled into society because I was trying to find my new title at work. And trying to find the new title, I was leading a sales operations team and a proposal team. So, I was like, hey, I'm supporting sales. What do you call that? Just started Google searching, playing around. I'm like, oh, yeah, I'm sales enablement. Now, at the time, I didn't do any further research. Fast forward a couple months after I've self titled myself the director of sales enablement because I was told to come up with a title. So
Right? This sounds good. Yeah.
Scott Santucci sent me a LinkedIn note. He's like, hey, I noticed your title. Come to this meeting and join us and talk about sales enablement. I was like, oh, okay, sure. Why not? I love networking. I love learning. Let's do this. So suddenly here I am in a meeting in the Washington, D.C. area with Scott. Brian Lambert's there. Of course, Raul Gupta's there and
Okay.
Nicole O'Brien's there. And we're all excited. The next thing you know, somehow five of us say we're going to start planning the next meetings. And that's how the Sales Enablement Society was born. Was
Wow.
that meeting?
So where did you first hear those two words? You did not know Scott. You hadn't read
Nope.
the Forrester report that he and
Nope.
Brian had worked on. How did you find those two words? Did you
Oh,
come up with it? Are you the originator of sales enablement?
oh no, I don't know. I would never ever try to pretend like I was. But I will say this: since I believe that getting access to Forrester reports was not easily accessible back in those days, so it's
Yeah,
been a while. So really, let's just blame Google. I mean,
I
honestly,
like it.
I was really good at using Google before there was help, right?
That's awesome. That's
Yeah,
good enablement,
yeah.
right?
I enabled myself to use Google.
So the Sales Enablement Society, where did it go from there? Because you were in the room where it happened essentially, right? What happened
Yes.
next?
Wow. Well, what happened next was we started planning for the next meeting and figuring out what we would need for that next meeting. In fact, in that meeting is where we really started to talk about the concept of sales enablement being a business in a business, even. I mean, it
Ooh, I know.
was,
I love that phrase.
yeah, I know that you do. And so, that's really, I think everyone just started taking on things, is really how it felt to me that we were really excited. We found that the conversation was interesting. We could all see how it might help us in the jobs that we had at the time, or even if we weren't on a job, on our career adventure, whatever that next one was. So it was really interesting to see that. And we were all interested in taking this on without, you know, having any money associated with it. So it naturally was, hey, this must be a nonprofit professional organization. And
Hmm.
that's really how it all started.
Wow. And so did you head down to Florida for that first big event? How did that all come together?
Yes, I did. And it came together because it was added on to use space that was already being used with Scott's company at the time
Ah,
for a different conference. So some of the people who were at that first meeting were already at that other conference. And please don't ask me to remember any of that stuff because that
oh,
wasn't my company or my purpose, you know.
uh-huh.
But that was how we all ended up there because it was this lovely little, hey, we can use the space for a day after the main event is over. So that's how that meeting came to be. And there was
Got
like
it.
100 people there.
Wow. And so at that point, that you were the only, you can't even call it a chapter because it was established at that meeting. Were there other groups already starting to gather, or was this just kind of a, hey, let's all come to one place and figure out what happens next?
So I would say no. I don't think there were formal other groups yet outside of the DC group and the online LinkedIn network.
Yeah, that Scott was
That's
establishing with his
yes,
articles and got it.
yes.
Okay.
So that's sort of, and then the whole chapter thing emerged, I believe, out of that meeting
Yeah. Yeah.
because people were like, hey, we want to keep talking about this. How do we do that? So
Right.
the idea was that these chapters would help work on little bits or pieces of the action items, you know, from that event. That was the concept. But
Love
of
it.
course, it was all volunteers. So, you know, there's only so far you could take that.
Right, which is part of the
Yeah.
magic of the Sales Enablement Society, a volunteer-driven group that's grown to what it is today is amazing. So you
Yeah,
asked
it
me
is.
not to make you remember anything from back in that time, so I'll give you a little bit of a cheat sheet
Oh, good.
because the part of the founding of Orchestrate Sales and really of the Inside Sales Enablement podcast was based around the three positions that came out of that meeting. The first being that sales enablement is a strategic approach to eliminating friction across the four primary areas that you all identified during that meeting. I believe, keep me in, on the rails here if I'm off, but talent, message, demand management, and administration, the four
Sure.
areas of the commercial process. So not talent is, I think, what the majority. So when I say talent, that would be onboarding, what I like to call everboarding. And I think that's kind of finally picked up as a word, just the ongoing onboarding of
Mhm.
everyone and keeping everyone up to speed, coaching,
Yep.
all that. To me, that falls into talent, but you've also got message, the marketing, and then the demand management, the funnel management, the demand generation,
Mhm.
and then the
Absolutely.
administration of the commercial process. So that was just the first one, right? Second one you already hit, which was needs to be run as a cross-functional business within a business. And then the third, there was an aspirational position of chief productivity officer. If we're getting together as a group, who do we want to become when we grow up as an
Sure.
identity, right?
Sure.
So,
Yeah.
any thoughts on those founding principles? Is that the way you remember them, and any other insights you can share, or personal,
Wow.
preference to some of them?
You know, one time I still had the white paper scrolls from that meeting. They
Wow.
have they have since left the house, but
Ah,
I also was like one of the primary note takers because I was really doing the larger role of facilitating the outcomes for the group because
okay.
in my consulting background I had been a facilitator. And honestly, like because I was a sales enablement director didn't mean that I had spent my career in that type of role. So for me, I found the best use for what I could do for the group was to really lean hard into my consulting skills and help facilitate and kind of orchestrate, now is the new word, right? What was going to happen there. So that was really what I was doing. And in terms of like, are these all the things? There were so many ideas that came out of the meeting, right? But these are good, solid things to start with as you start to think about how did we get here.
Yeah. Or were there other things other than the founding principles that, and again, if you're like, I don't know, the scrolls are gone,
Scrolls are
but
gone, but I don't
other
know that
key,
we don't need the scrolls though. I
yeah,
mean, you know, let's not let history be dragging us down here,
I,
right? Like at the end
or,
of the day, the whole point to me, or the best part of the society, was not the principles. It was the
hmm,
network connections. It was learning from other people, getting coaching, giving coaching. It was wonderful, right? Because we were connecting with people that in our job function or even in our everyday lives, we were not going to connect with those people.
Yeah.
But this brought us together. And that's what came out of it, in my opinion. That was the best
Love it.
part.
Yeah.
These topics, we can all argue till we're blue in the face about what
Sure.
the true sales enablement function is. And obviously we're still struggling with it because we've renamed the society to the Revenue Enablement Society.
Right. Well, we'll get there in a minute. Hold, please. Well, actually, we can go there right now. So, what are your thoughts on that? Revenue Enablement Society. I don't believe you were at that meeting. We met at the San Antonio for the first time, actually.
Yeah,
Speaking of the
and
SES experience. Um,
honestly, that was really my last real engagement with the
oh,
society because I went off to start some small businesses on my own. So,
entrepreneur.
I didn't have time for it anymore. And I really wanted to focus on doing some other things for myself.
Awesome. So, what do you think though about revenue enablement? Do you have an opinion? Is there a different sales enablement? Does it land well with you? What was your reaction when you saw the headline in the newspaper?
I wasn't surprised because I do feel like it's been in the thread of conversation that I still see. So it wasn't new news, that's for sure. It was new news to see it official. So that was kind of cool. But I know this topic has been coming up for a little while now, so it wasn't new. I think a lot of things might have changed, but maybe that name change is really just a reflection of a broader set of problems that we're still having maybe in this title or in this career track or whatever it might be, because maybe we really haven't gotten our arms around it. Businesses exist to make money. So when you use a term like sales or revenue, it makes it feel important or it clarifies the role. So
Mhm.
in that sense, I can see why we move from sales to revenue because
Yeah.
sales feels only focused on sales activities. And that's not every activity in a business.
Mhm.
But revenue is more focused on maybe the larger goal of the business, which is not just to have sales, but to actually make money, right? And sales isn't necessarily the only way they're making money, or there are other things that maybe need to be considered as a part of that process.
Right. And it goes back to those four primary areas, the eliminating friction across the commercial
Yeah.
process, talent,
Yes.
message, demand management,
Yes.
administration, and everything therein, all the silos, right?
Yeah.
Knocking them all down
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
orchestrating, right?
Yeah.
This episode brought to you by
GTM AI Academy. Learn AI from a globally trusted resource. Coach K, Jonathan Carfort. Their bundle, Enablement AI Mastery, includes both the core Generative AI Foundations course and Enablement AI Mastery specifically. Each course has a value of $599 individually, but Coach K is offering them as a bundle with reduced pricing. And as a listener of the Inside Sales Enablement podcast, if you act now, you can use code ISE30 to get an additional 30% off of the entire thing. You will also receive free access to the GTM AI Tools demo library. Coach K has done the demos, so you don't have to, and offers his straight shooting opinion, fact-based through an enablement lens. Go to www.gtmaiacademy.com and enter code ISE30 today and elevate your AI enablement game.
So before we think about present future, any other good, again, you had a seat at the table early on. Any stories from enablement history, anything you might the world, the global enablement audience might be like, oh, that's pretty cool. Like give us some behind the curtain stuff.
Oh, wow. I have learned a lot about telling stories, so I will confirm or deny lore, but I don't want to start new lore. So
Okay.
that's where I am on that front. The most important thing to me was I've met some great people, right? Like, and some of them aren't even involved in the Sales Enablement Society anymore, but I know I can call them and they'll pick up my call, right? And I love that. I think that's fantastic. And you can't replicate that experience ever again. So that's probably the most important lore is that this society brings you people that you would not have thought could be your advocate, a mentor, a coach, a friend. that's the most amazing thing. That's what matters. And I hope that that continues as the society continues to impact people.
Any shout outs, past, present, future, people that that have had an impact or that you're still in touch with?
Well, obviously, I'm still in touch with Brian, as you know.
The audience might not, though, right?
Oh, yeah, they may not know. Well, yeah, so Brian gave me my nickname as you introduced me here on the podcast.
There we go. So Dr. Brian Lambert.
Yes, he did.
The original co-host with Santucci of this very podcast, by the way.
Yes. And he called me Bacon because he believes that I make everything better, like bacon. And that's great, right? What a wonderful compliment. Yeah. And, just had to hang on to those things, right? But, he and I kind of lost touch for a little while. And I sent him a note and he got back to me like right away. And that meant a lot to me, honestly, because at the end of the day, like I've been busy doing a lot of other things, raising kids, running small businesses, like, life's crazy. You don't always reach out, right? But it's just good to know. And he's not the only example. Another one that I know I can call and he'll call me back. Mike Garrison. I don't know if you've spent any time with him, but
I haven't.
He and I stay in touch. Like we check on each other. And I love that. It's wonderful, right? I used to have wonderful lunches with Gearhart. And
of course.
We would just brainstorm things and talk about mindset and how to like really think differently. And honestly, he was the inspiration for me going and running my own businesses. Because you know what? Why should I limit myself from having everything that I want, or at least trying at the end of the day? So you can't, like I said, you can't replicate that. Tanya Schultz and Christy Oliver, those two, those are like sisters from another mom to me, right? Like I feel like I could call them and we could just get into a cadence and just enjoy the whole call. We don't even know what we did yesterday. We don't talk to each other every day, but I feel like I could call them.
Well, and those, by the way, were the first and second president of the Atlanta chapter, of which Christy handed the baton to me to be the third. So near and dear women to me as well. Well, let's talk about the present and future. Just currently, so are you involved in revenue enablement, we'll call it, at all right now? Is that part of your world?
I mean, I keep tabs on it. It's not part of my world. I have not been in the industry in that way for quite a few years now. And so, a lot of it's not necessarily relevant, but I can't help but keep tabs because it was such a part of my life for so long.
Of course. Well, so what do you think about the future? We've got this thing AI going on, right? We're in the digital age. And if, a little bit ago, we were talking about how, enablement's looking for their identity. For me, part of the whole idea of Inside Sales Enablement Season 4 Enablement Future, I believe that it's maybe not the last chance at it, but the enablement that, to your point a little bit ago, hasn't necessarily still found its full footing in having that, non-negotiable, critical role on the GTM team that is, that they can't live without. So what about the possibility of a future of maybe it's AI enablement and it's, cross for the entire organization? What might hold?
So like history, I think the future will also repeat some patterns. And that's just the way that it is, right? We are human beings, as we did discuss at the front end of the call. It's harder now, though, because we're in a global society and we're digitally connected. So we're facing, I think, some very interesting challenges in the business world. There's so much pressure to emphasize your branded and marketed message, or to bend the truth, even to sound important, right? I mean, wow, like it's like marketing on steroids, and it's not good. It's actually dehumanizing me, I think, just to see some of these ads that show up in my inbox. I don't know. I cringe daily, right? This is where I am. And are we just so busy keeping up with the message that we're starting to forget how to dig deeper and find solutions that will keep up with the pace of technological change? And as you might not know, my original passion in everything and all of this through my life has really been about organizational change management.
Mm.
And we always treat it like it's sort of this separate activity that we can do outside of our business. We can't do that anymore. That's just a reality. And this cross-functional support is more important than ever. But let's not let the shiny object of AI and machine learning continue to disrupt our IT environments and our technology stack. How about we just cut through all that noise, help continue to make revenue, and try to avoid these easy fixes and be more purposeful? I mean, I really think that's what it is at the end of the day. If we start letting technology tell us what to do, we're in a lot of trouble.
Right.
I guess that's where I am. So, if we ask more questions and we lead the change and we make it a part of our job every day to enable this purpose, right? And to make good use out of these new shiny objects, but in the right way for the business and in the right way for the customer. And I think ultimately that's sort of where I am on the future. Just got to get a little more change management inserted into our everyday.
On this idea of being an AI curious human enthusiast, AI is here to help remove the administrivia from the junk that we don't want to do that wastes time, so we can lean into our given gifting. Do you see an opportunity? And so much of what I've been exposed to in the AI, there's some really good applications of AI out there. But back to the inbox, there's so much of AI driven outreach that is just killing the human touch. And in fact, to the point where people are even being laid off, BDRs, SDRs, in favor of automating some of that stuff that, in my mind, without the human element, you completely lose. How do you see AI being, or enablement being, a part of that, or does that even resonate with you?
It might resonate with me, but not for the reason that you're thinking.
Interesting.
So I think maybe we just need to consider that people will buy things that they want to buy, not be manipulated into buying things that they don't want to buy, right? And this is the real problem, because this is America. This is the land of opportunity where everyone should be an entrepreneur and everyone should get to make money selling something, right? How do we balance this? That's really where it is. And I don't think that AI replacing jobs here is really the real problem. Let's get back to purpose, right? If you're making a good product, you're doing something good for the world, then you don't need anyone to sell it for you. You really don't. And sometimes I do think that gets in the way and we don't ask those questions, right? This gets back to the whole purpose. When we want to blame sales enablement for not fixing the sales problem, that's not what sales enablement is there for. What if what you're selling isn't what the customer wants anymore? What if you need to be disrupted? What if this is the opportunity that your business needs to pivot in a way that makes sense for the future? Because what I see is that everyone's trying to just keep the status quo and do it for less money, sure, but AI doesn't cost less money. It is impacting the bottom line. So I do think that maybe it's just because it's easier to deal with AI because it won't cry when you tell them they're not doing the right thing, right? Or they'll keep making cold calls because they're not a human being, right? We talked about this on Brian Lambert's podcast last week, and just bring it up because it's funny, but there was like an article that said that AI could outperform empathy in humans, right? Well, did it? No, what it did is the AI could keep going because it could go on for 24/7. It could make cold calls, right, for 24/7. It could listen to you complain 24/7. This is our new environment. I don't think that we are adjusting. So this is maybe really what sales enablement could be doing, or just enablement, revenue enablement, right? That's the new term. I think we just need to go back to focusing on the basics, right? Which is removing obstacles and identifying areas for improvement that are getting in the way of the company's success. And it doesn't need to focus on something specific. It doesn't have to focus on BDR. It doesn't have to focus on cold calls. It doesn't have to focus on training. Maybe look at it as a larger scale set of issues. Be more like an orchestrator and start to see the patterns and look for where you can connect dots. Don't get caught up in this used to work and it always worked for me for the last 50 years. I don't see that getting us anywhere, right? Let's start to think outside of the box. Let's disrupt ourselves. Let's figure out how to be successful and pivot in this new way of doing business in the digital, global, connected world, right? That's what we should be doing.
So says Bacon. I like it.
That's my philosophy, Lance.
Definitely better with you. So.
Oh, thank you. I was going to say one other side note real quick. Just, you know, a lot of this is very philosophical, but I will just say I ran a restaurant and I embodied all the principles that I just stated to you to get people to do things differently. And I led the change. You know what? I flipped omelets. I led the change. This is what I want you to do. I'm going to show you. I led the change by treating the customer the way I wanted people to treat the customer. I led the change by getting front of the house to talk to back of the house, right? I gave everyone in my restaurant role clarity so that they didn't have to worry about whether or not I was going to be happy or sad with what they were spending time on. These are all things that I wrote about and espoused during my time with the Sales Enablement Society. So I would just say it can work anywhere. It doesn't have to be a technology sales organization. It can be a restaurant. It can be an educational institution. It can be a production line. Because if you're just kind of sticking to the principles of really just removing those barriers to success and thinking about what the human beings need to do that, you will get there, right? You will get there every time. You just got to lean into it and give yourself the opportunity to perform.
What a great place to land. Thank you so much, Jen Marie. It's absolute pleasure to finally have you on the show and excited to see all the places you will go. I know that I know that you're
a Dr. Seuss episode
into the AI thing. So maybe we'll have you on next season as well.
Wonderful. I'm happy to help however I can because it still matters, even if I'm not involved every day.
Absolutely. And we're grateful for all of the things that you did to get the Enablement Society off the ground and all that you continue to do today. Thanks so much for coming on board.
Thanks for having me. It was really fun to be here.